Amelia Panikam, Amanda Minich, and Vasu Jakal. Thank you so much for joining me. A fantastic panel with an also fantastic audience. Thank you for coming. We're going to have an important discussion around diversity and how we can build a stronger cybersecurity workforce. I'm Shara DeGrippo, Director of Threat Intelligence Strategy at Microsoft, and I'd like to ask all of you in the audience a question. Anyone in here dedicated full-time to cybersecurity? Raise your hand.
I think it's probably hard for people that see us. Should we ask people to shift space?
You can always move if you'd like. That's good luck. That's good luck.
That wasn't a bird, right?
Nope. Nope. That was good luck. If you'd like to move, feel free. I want to make sure that everyone can see. So we have a shortage gap in cybersecurity. So those of you who aren't in cybersecurity full-time, maybe it's something you might want to look into coming over to our side. And we also see that underrepresented groups, whether they're women, transgender, particular culture, they're underrepresented in the industry, and that's something that we want to talk about, and we want to see if we can kind of fill some of those gaps. So we have a panel of diverse experts here today to talk about the future of cybersecurity. And before we start the panel, and I am interrogating you with all kinds of questions to take your expertise out into the audience, I would love for each of you to introduce yourself. And Ann Johnson, I'd love to start with you.
Hello.
Hi.
Come on, wake up.
Hi.
Come on,
Hi.
it's after lunch, come on. All right.
Hi.
Got it. I'm Ann. This is my 24th year in cybersecurity, so it's been a little while. I now serve as one of Microsoft's deputy CISOs. I'm responsible for what we call customer security, and I have been at Microsoft almost 9 years doing security. I am thrilled to be on this panel with all of these exceptional women and also having Sharon lead the panel. So thank you for being here. We're going to have some fun, and hopefully you'll leave here with some thoughts about how you can drive diversity. And I'll leave one last thought. Yesterday we did the pre-day for security, and it was overwhelmingly women, senior executive women. So it can be done. You just have to invest.
Amelia, I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, it's hard to go after that, but thank you so much, Sharon. My name is Amelia Panikam. I'm a third-year computer science student at Georgia Tech. At Girl Security, I started out as a fellow in their workforce development program, then as a mentee in their mentorship program, and now I'm a program assistant, so truly full circle.
Amanda, let's hear from you.
Hi, I'm Amanda Minich, and I lead the long-term ops and research wing of the Microsoft AI Red team. And our goal is to look at kind of the what's next of AI safety and security. The 3 years before that, I was an operator and researcher on this team, so I've spent a lot of time attacking and breaking our AI systems. And my path in this space has been very windy. My undergrad's in bio. I joined the CS grad program without knowing how to code, and I have done all kinds of biolab stuff. I was a field biologist in Australia and French Polynesia. I worked at Twitter during 2020 and identified information operations internationally and a lot of domestic election interference stuff. So I've been all over the place with this field, but I really enjoy the adversarial aspect of cybersecurity and how things are always changing and there's always a new problem, and that's really been the sweet spot for me in this space.
Vasu?
Yeah,
What do
well,
you got?
that is super cool, and she does our AI red teaming. If you should talk to her about that. I'm Vasu. I look after our security business end-to-end globally here at Microsoft. Joined Microsoft over 4 years back, and it's been an incredible, incredible ride. And I get to work with these amazing women and men at Microsoft. My journey in technology started 25 years back, so I've been here for a long time. I started in silicon engineering. Who knew like silicon would be back right now with all of the shortage? And it's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of loops, and I found my love for cybersecurity like Anne along that journey, and I think it's truly a calling to do this, and I'm super proud to see how far we've come and how we've helped each other along that way. And fun fact, I'm a mom of 3 kids. I have one of each. I have a girl, I have a boy, and I have a golden retriever who is our most favorite child. So
I can't imagine how spoiled that dog is. So Anne and Vasu, as leaders, I want to kind of talk about threat actors are distributed globally. We see the global threat landscape continue to escalate, and that means that we need people doing this work that are able to operate in a global world, whether that's language, culture, background, understanding. I want to understand how diversity has helped in your teams and how that's played a key role to help you achieve your missions. And I'll start with you.
So I often tell my team that we need to be as diverse as the problems we're trying to solve. That means, that doesn't just mean, being a woman or a man. It also means different socioeconomic backgrounds, different geographic backgrounds, different skills we bring, different educational backgrounds. If everyone we hire has a PhD in computer science from MIT, everyone we hire is going to look at a problem in a similar way. We need to balance across that and bring in people that have that PhD in computer science from MIT. We need to bring in men. We need to bring in women. We need to bring in people from different regions of the world. We need to bring in people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, people without college degrees, people from community college. We hire a lot of retired law enforcement or retired military, people that have different perspectives, because what you get is groupthink, right? If you bring everyone to a problem and they all have a similar background, they're all thinking about the problem in the same way. If you bring people with all these different dimensionalities and how they think, their life experiences, their education backgrounds, etc., they're going to look at problems differently. And our problems are really complex. The threat actors are getting much more sophisticated and actually much more persistent in what they do. They're getting much more aggressive in what they do. And we need to change how we think. The threat actors have our playbooks, right? They know how we respond to events. So we need to change how we think. We need to change how we attack problems. And the only way you're going to do that is if you bring people with unique perspectives. I'm going to turn this to Vasu with one final comment. I said to you that I've been doing this for, this is the end of like 24 years, right? 23 and a half years. That's actually, again, I find myself challenging my own mindset because I'm like, wow, I need to think differently too, because the problems are changing and evolving, and the solutions I'm bringing, I need to talk to the folks that are in college or the folks that are, younger in career. Or Vasu just came to Microsoft, she's been here half the time. These people are going to have a different perspective than I have, and that's really important when you're trying to solve hard problems.
it's always really tough to follow Anne, right? And Anne, thank you for being just a great role model and just being so welcoming and warm. And I remember how hard it is sometimes for us to take the first step on a journey, and we all need allies. And I also love what you said about diversity, because sometimes we think about diversity in certain what I call fixed terms, whether it's gender diversity or background diversity. The reality is diversity means cognitive diversity. It means how we think differently. And Shared, going back to your question, the reason that's important is if you look at the threat landscape, and we shared some statistics today, we're in unprecedented times. And these attackers are really, really diverse. They probably look like us, they probably don't look like us. They're from every single region, every single country across the world, from all backgrounds. Anne talked about it, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds. They speak different languages. That's why diversity matters. That's in security, is if you have to stay ahead of the attackers, you have to reflect the diversity in our world. Or we're starting from a disadvantage. And in our teams, in our teams, I see diversity playing an impactful role on two sides. One is helping us figure out who the threat actors are, and really the why, the what, and the how behind their motivations. And on the second side, as we develop tools, we also want to make sure that we take diverse perspectives into account, especially with AI, because we believe security should be for all. Security should be for good, and AI should be for all, and AI should be for good. And the all is particularly important, because if we don't reflect the all in building these things, how can we design technology which supports all? So that's how I think of security and diversity and the role that it plays. And it's not a nice to have, it's a must.
It is a must, and I love that you brought up AI. Thank you, Vasu. So I want to talk to Amanda about AI and how we at Microsoft are doing things like AI Red Team, and how we are dedicated to making sure that AI is influenced by diverse voices? Because I think when we see some of the headlines about bias in AI, that's something that people are really concerned about. It concerns me for sure. So how are we addressing things like that?
Yeah, AI red teaming is interesting because it brings together security but also often safety issues, and our AI red team at Microsoft does cover both security and safety. Safety can also be called responsible AI, which you might have heard things about. But when we're testing these things, it's not just whether there is a downstream security effect, which we check for too, but we're also looking at, does this tech emit abusive text or biased text or harmful images, violent images, these different things we are testing across the responsible AI pillars. And so when you are red teaming, you're trying to be creative and thoughtful and really put yourself in the mindset of the adversary, and just everybody thinking about this problem the same, which is what we had when we were a very small team, does limit your scope. And every time we've added someone with a distinct background, people on our team are multilingual. I am one of the only people not fluent in a second language, and I'm feel bad about that, but we have a really diverse base, and every time we add somebody, we're suddenly thinking of new problems and new scope. And obviously the goal would be to codify this so that you don't have to be reliant on the individuals to bring that perspective every time, but this field is emergent, this field is changing very, very quickly, and we're developing these processes. So we really need the people in the room right now to help identify these issues, and also obviously when designing AI, sourcing the right data sets, doing the right evaluations of the models to make sure that the model is going to serve all of its users in the same unbiased way.
That's great. And so when we think about getting AI voices to be more diverse, getting cybersecurity voices to be more diverse, Amulya, I wanted to ask you, and then I'd like to hear from Anne too, what do we need to do to attract diversity into the industry? Maybe what are we missing? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What should we be doing here to expand that scope?
Yeah, of course. So great question. I think it's about changing the story to show that anyone can succeed in fields like cybersecurity and AI. By showcasing more diverse representation and their achievements, we can inspire more people. And I think this panel is really a testament to that, because I'm sitting here with them and I'm in awe of the work that they're doing, and they've paved this way for me to be here, and that's what I hope to do with the women that come after me. But I also think it's about integrating cybersecurity and AI into K-12 curriculum, either through teacher training, student-centered engagement, or career exposure. Actually, Girl Security right here in Chicago on the South Side just launched their first ever high school clinics for high school girls. Yep. And very exciting. But I also think that we need to tackle biases in hiring and education by providing more inclusive training. And this is something Girl Security is doing with partnership with Microsoft Security. But we see this really, really big push for young girls and women to join STEM fields and programs. But how do we keep them there? That's the million-dollar question. How do we ensure that their journey is sustained, that they advance their professional development because they feel supported? So, yeah.
And what about you? What's missing? What can we be doing better to attract that talent?
Can we talk about the threat actor that's in the room first?
That threat actor's name is McCormick Avian, and it's definitely a state-sponsored actor.
Because the one thing that Sharon knows is, and I'm being genuine, I am terrified of birds. So every time this thing, thank goodness it's a little bird, so I'm managing to maintain some composure up here as it flies by.
I will fight that bird for you, Anne.
Yeah. All right, someone will take care of the bird. Anyway, so how many of you are from Chicago? Or do we have a Chicago? Is there anyone, like a few local people here? So when I first met the folks at Girl Security, Lynn mentioned where they were headquartered and where they were, right? And it's in the, the southwest suburbs of Chicago. And I happen to be married to a Chicagoan who's also from the city, from the south side of Chicago. The reason I'm saying all this is that's not, as you get out into like those suburbs, it's not the most diverse part of the world, right? It's if you live there, you'll understand what I'm saying. It's not. So the fact that there's this organization that looked across this industry and said there's a need, right? people that are sitting in a place where it wouldn't naturally probably come to them, or their orientation wouldn't be looking around themselves and seeing a lot of people that look differently, because that's not what they probably get up and do every day, having lived in those suburbs pretty close to where Girl Security is headquartered. You don't get up every day and you don't look around and see people that look much different from you on a daily basis. So the fact that they started this organization in a place and focused on security is a testament to the work Girl Security saw, the need in the industry. We do have a shortage of skilled cyber workers in the industry, right? What does that really mean? There are job descriptions that are written incorrectly. They are asking for like many years of experience of things that don't even exist. You know, there's old jokes about that one that came out early that wanted 10 years of like AWS experience before AWS has been around for even 3 years, right? So, you know, you start with that problem. You start with getting your job descriptions written appropriately. You start with looking at the language that's in job descriptions, by the way. I want a tough fighter. I want, you know, aggressive, whatever these words are. When I tell people I do cybersecurity, they looked at me and they'd be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. We turn people off. We don't just turn women off, by the way. We turn people off because of some of the language we use in the industry. People don't want to be affiliated or associated with something that sounds like it's war fighting. There are certain people that do, and that's great. So you start there, right? What language are you using to bring people in? Representation matters. Having someone that has Vasu's background, women look up to her and say, oh, Vasu is a senior executive at Microsoft, physically looking at her and saying, I can be a senior executive at Microsoft. Looking at the two ladies sitting here, Red Team, AI. How many women do you think look and say, think of their career journey as being on the Red Team in AI? The one thing, I've been in tech my entire professional career, and the one thing I constantly get challenged on is how technical I am. I mean, still to this day, by the way. And it's amusing to me now. It wasn't amusing to me before, but it's kind of entertaining to me these days. I have some fun conversations with people because I can be a troll like a lot of people. But the point is, there's not a lot of women that wake up and they think about that because they don't see the representation. They don't see the representation on college campuses. Representation matters. Having role models matter. Affinity with those people matter. But you know what is even more important, or equally important, is allyship. Some of my best allies for my entire career have been white men. They were in tech for a long time. I was walking through here yesterday morning looking at the registration line. I had to get to like my 50th person to find somebody, and I'm not joking, okay? And I was like, well, that's interesting, right? For me, it was a scientific analysis. It wasn't a judgment analysis. It was like, oh, that's interesting. Some of my best allies have been people that have been in the industry a long time. The fact that you're willing to ally, whether it's for a woman, whether it's for someone like me who has a political science degree, not a computer science degree, whether it's for someone that didn't go to college, if you're willing to extend an olive branch, if you're willing to bring courses to someone, or if you're willing to sit in an area that isn't as diverse as the world, like the southwest suburbs of Chicago, and start up an organization focused on diversity, you're trying to change the world, but you're changing it one person at a time, and that's all we can do, right? We all can change the world one person at a time. And to me, that's the important thing.
I love that. I love that. And I agree with you. I've been in cybersecurity for 20 years now, almost 21, and I have had incredible allies from people who didn't have to do that for me. And so if you're in a position to be an ally or a mentor to someone, I encourage you to do that. It really, really does make a difference. It pushes you further. It expands your mind in a way that you may not have thought of before. So we talked a little bit about biases, and what I would like to do now is ask Anne and Vasu to just give us a little bit. I'll start with Vasu. If someone is facing bias, what advice or solace could you kind of give to them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we all have our biases. I think the first step is just acknowledging that we all have our biases. And this is not a good or bad thing. It's just, when you're raised a certain way, you look at something and that's your background, culturally maybe, and you associate a particular thing with that. That's a bias. And continuously, we have to cultivate this mindset of questioning our biases. It could be recency bias, it could be proximity bias, it could be so many other biases. And there are biases that I think all of us face in the work environment. Anne talked about allyship, which I cannot emphasize how important that is, because I think ultimately we all want to belong to something. We had done an exercise a few years back on what is the one thing, if you were stack rank, what do people look for in their careers? And going into that exercise, we thought it was going to be about maybe career advancement, or it was going to be about money or title or power. The number one thing that came out of the top was belonging. I want to belong to something, to someone, to a mission, because when we don't feel like we belong, then it becomes really challenging. And when we don't feel like we belong to something, those biases really kick in. So that allyship is important. How do we deal with biases? Find an ally and have that conversation with them. The second thing I would be is challenge those biases. When you see those, raise your hand. We've got to learn to raise our hand. And we don't have to do that in a terrible way. We can do that with utter kindness, because sometimes the person that you perceive as biased may not even know that they're biased. And so raise your hand, and that's an opportunity. There's a term at Microsoft that we use, we say it's growth mindset. And growth mindset actually is about challenging our own biases and helping others understand their biases. It's about questioning, it's this curiosity. So with curiosity, if you see a bias, whether it's in your workplace or any other environment, raise your hand and take the time to have that conversation. You'll be surprised at what that impact can be. I have done that many times, and I know it's hard when you're early in your career to do that. But boy, has that had a profound impact on the relationships that I form with the people when we call that out. I have had others tell me about my own biases as well. And so I think that's second. And then the third one, and I know we'll talk more about this, Sherrod, is, along with allyship, sponsorship is super, super important. And it's important when it comes to biases as well. Because when you have a sponsor, the difference between a sponsor and a mentor is someone who has a conversation with you, has a discussion with you, is there for you. A sponsor is your voice when you're not in the room. And that is important because when you think about biases, many times those conversations and what needs to happen to change them are in rooms that you may not be there. And that's why find sponsors who are going to be a voice, who understand your perspective, who understand where you come from, and can be that voice in rooms that you're not in. So those are some of the things, Sherrod, it starts with your own honest self-awareness about, do I have biases? What does biases look like for me? Why do I get triggered? What's the reason for that? It starts there. Having an ally, because nothing like having someone you can have this conversation with, having a sponsor, and then making sure that you raise your hand, because courage is going to be required if we want to make a dent in the diversity spectrum.
I love that. I think that everyone in this room and everyone watching wants to hear these kinds of things, because as much as we can talk about diversity, we sort of need that motivation and hope and optimism that I want to hear from Anne next. What would you say to somebody?
It is hope and optimism, right? Look, and I want to follow on to two things Vasu said, because they're really, really important. We all have biases. I have biases, the way I grew up, things my parents reinforced, or my friend circle, or whatever. Having the self-awareness to understand what your biases is a really big step, by the way. And having the self-awareness to understand why certain people or certain situations trigger you, and having the EQ, right? Having the emotional intelligence to actually overcome those, that's an important step of being an ally. The other thing is that belonging, right? You've got shelter, safety, belonging. Well, you can't actually have self-esteem or self-actualize being your best self unless you belong. And, I spent a lot of time quoting Maslow, because there's also the Maslow hierarchy of security, but I spent a lot of time because it's a fundamental human psychology. Every human, unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath, I'm saying that not even humorously, right? You have that same need to belong to actually be your full person. How do you belong? You find a circle of people that are accepting of you, professionally, personally. How can we help? You can reach out. There's little things, and so Vasu had just so many wonderful things to say. I'll be a little more tactical. There's a couple little things, right? You're sitting in a meeting or on a Teams call, and you notice that someone in the room is just, they can't get their voice out there. Be that ally in the moment. Say, hey, Katie, I noticed Katie's been trying to say something. Can we give Katie some space to say what she's trying to say? That's one way to be an incredible ally. If you notice bad behavior, call it out. It's hard. And maybe you're only more comfortable doing it privately. Maybe you want to pull somebody to the side after the fact and just say, look, that wasn't cool, what you did. Maybe you're okay doing it in the moment. That's strong allyship. It's making sure that someone knows that their behavior, that you saw their behavior, and it wasn't the right behavior, and it wasn't something they should be modeling in the workplace. Calling that out is incredibly powerful. If you do it in the moment and you're comfortable doing it in front of an audience, it's powerful to the person you're helping to and the person you're supporting also. Vasu talked about sponsorship. Be a sponsor. If you're in a room and they're talking about, hey, we're going to, there's a new role opening up. Oh, you know what? I think Susie or Joe would be great at that job, and talk about why without Susie or Joe in the room. It's incredibly powerful. There are little things you can do every day. Just like there are microaggressions we all deal with every day, there's also little things you can do every day to be a really exceptional ally that aren't going to cost you anything, right? They're not going to cost you anything. They're easy. But back to the first thing, understand your own biases. Get that self-awareness so you understand the situations that you're reacting to instead of being constructive in.
And can I add one thing that was awesome? I also think that we sometimes underestimate the role that we can play in changing a bias. You know, we truly stand on the shoulders of giants. I wouldn't even be here if there wasn't someone somewhere who had paved the path where they looked at me and they said, yeah, I mean, she could do this. She could do science. You know, it is a bet, or she could get that scholarship. I can take that bet. So don't underestimate the role that you all play in changing biases. We sometimes underestimate our own power. Every single thing you do, every single person you work for, you're changing their view. Because the next time they meet someone like Anne, they're going to be like, I know a person who was amazing at that. Or Amelia, they say, I know a student who was amazing like that. So when you think about that, you will have changed someone's bias. And that's a pretty powerful thing. So as much as, but to learn about biases, be someone who's going to change that bias. Be someone whose shoulders someone else can stand on. I think that's really worthwhile. That's pretty amazing, isn't it, to do that?
I plan to stand on your shoulders.
Let's go, Sharon. Let's go. We'll have to lift somebody. Come on.
As long as you get rid of the bird. That's all
I'm going to have a
ask,
net.
okay?
I think,
And you should stand on my shoulders. And boy, if I don't help you with that, shame on me.
well, you do tend to wear like 4-inch heels. So between the two of us, I feel like we could grab that bird. So I love both of these answers. And I think for me, I just want to highlight one thing, which Anne said, which is normalize saying in a group meeting, wait, could I just hear what he or she was saying? And everyone generally is a good-hearted person and will say, oh, people like to talk more than they like to listen, a little bit. And I think that it really does work. And you start normalizing that in the culture of your organizations, and I really believe that you'll see a shift. I also believe that culture is conversation. The things that we talk about create the culture of our organizations. And so when there are people that don't get to speak, that's impacting the culture that you work in. So let's talk a little bit. Anne and Amanda, we have some mentorship programs out there that maybe the audience would like to know about.
You want to start? I've talked a lot. Let's let Amanda talk.
Sure, yeah. So my career has really been bolstered by these different supportive groups. Going to my first Grace Hopper conference, which is for women in computing in, I think it was 2013, changed my life. I saw all of these women, and it wasn't just women my age, it was senior women, and I specifically remember senior women executives from Microsoft and being like, whoa, I knew that they were it was possible, but seeing all of that and being like just marinated in it for a couple of days like made such a difference to me. And I came back to my grad program and started our Women in Computing group like the next week. And it's still going, I just checked, and they have scholarships actually for people to attend Grace Hopper now. So it's a very cool full circle thing. But these groups have been really powerful and helpful for me. And recently we saw that we felt that there was a lack in AI security specifically for an affiliate group, and so we started one called Align, and the goal is to elevate diverse voices for safer AI for all of the reasons that we've discussed. But I feel like, you know, create the group if you don't see it, but also there are so many groups, and I think we have a big list that we can share, but there are ones, it's not just women, like there's Black in AI, Queer in AI, QueerCon, there's a huge variety out there, and it can really make the difference in your career because you can just feel that sense of belonging and also get advice and information that's tailored for you. Like at Grace Hopper, I went to an event where they taught us about negotiating, and that allowed me to negotiate from a postdoc to a staff offer when I graduated. Like it was tactical and made a huge difference in my career. So I think reach out and look for these groups and really try to find people who want to walk with you on the journey. And then as you do that, as it has been said, like make sure to hold the door open behind you so that we can continue to bring people into this space.
Yeah, there's a lot of well, Microsoft, we have our ERGs, and we have a very wide set of ERGs. You know, regardless of where you affiliate, you will find a sense of belonging within one of our ERGs. If you think about just Grace Hopper or even Alan Turing, right? These people changed the world. They were actually, you know, they were trailblazers, but they were also diverse in their own way. So they changed the world. But you have, we talked about Girl Security, we talked about WESIS, you have Executive Women's Forum, you have Grace Hopper, you have your own company, if you're not at Microsoft, probably has its own employee resource groups that are diverse. Find that, if you're so inclined, some people aren't, but if you're so inclined, find that affiliated group, because what you'll find is the best groups, by the way, are incredibly diverse. They're not just, this is the only type of folks we accept. They're very diverse themselves. But they also will give you that sense of community, that sense of belonging, that sense of advice, that sense of mentorship, helping you find a sponsor, helping you find your role models, et cetera. There's so many. We have this other thing I want to promote really quickly is MSSA. We have, particularly for cyber, we've been really successful with transitioning U.S. military. So folks that have already decided they're going to transition from the military, retraining them, bringing them to cyber careers. I love to hire transitioning military because they know how to operate in crisis. They know how to work on a team. A lot of them know how to do investigations. I just have to teach them cyber skills. All the intangibles are there, right? So they're great. They're fantastic security folks, but there's so many different affiliated groups. You just need to decide what's important to you and join one of those groups and really become active, right? Find your circle of people and give as much as you get back. You'll find it to be a much more valuable experience if you're giving as much as you get back as you become comfortable with the group.
I love that. And then I also want to talk to Amelia about some policymaker stuff at the White House to help bring diversity into cybersecurity that you've been involved in. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So this year, Girl Security partnered with the White House and other fellow cybersecurity organizations to help shape the national cybersecurity workforce strategy. So that's been really cool. And in the year 2025, we want to deepen and focus our efforts on areas like quantum computing, emerging threats from AI, but also securing an upcoming workforce to work in fields like security. So that's been really important. And I may have mentioned this earlier, but Girl Security launched high school clinics as part of our workforce development program, which started virtually in 2019. But we think that, you know, bringing these topics to high schools and allowing these girls to really immerse themselves in an environment they've never had before is so, so important. And so we're hoping to expand these regionally focused clinics to areas like Atlanta, the DMV, Oakland, and other parts of the United States within 2 years. And then lastly, partnership with industry has also been extremely beneficial in the success of these programs. And so we just launched something called the Reverse Mentoring Tool, which essentially allows for intergenerational learning, and it captures that intergenerational learning that comes naturally. And we think that Girl Security is wholly unique in the way, because we're not just preparing girls for industry now, or preparing them for 5, 10, 20 years later down the road, because we want them to, you know, holistically adapt and learn to the changes in the industry.
That's fantastic. And so, go ahead, Anne.
Can I add something?
Of
Is that all right?
course.
Are you sure?
Add it.
When I first heard of girl security, I had a visceral reaction. So I'm of a generation where girl was a negative term when you became a woman, right? You know, oh, you girls, you know, it was pejorative. So when I first heard girl security, much like when I first heard us starting to bring back the word queer, again, I'm of the generation that was used as a slur. Those are the type of biases. Basu talked about the fact we all have our own biases. I really had a visceral reaction to someone naming an org girl security. I was like, that's an insult, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. So those are the biases that we all, because of our lived experiences, have, and you have to kind of overcome. And how you do that and how you get yourself comfortable. I'm very comfortable now with the girl part of girl security. Very comfortable with saying I am a girl. Getting there on the queer thing, that'll take some time.
I'm Gen X too. So I remember that being like that was, for me in high school, that is not a word that you say. And we're in a different reality now where there's a reclaiming and you have to take your biases and adjust around them or you're not growing. Basu, you have some information about programs around scholarships and financial aid
Yeah.
within Microsoft for bringing people into the cybersecurity career. Tell us about that.
Absolutely, and you can see it on the slide here as well, and there's a QR code, and we can send this information. But you know, there's a lot that we're doing. One of my favorite has been, we took the challenge to skill students across the world, so 250,000 people, skilling them by 2025, and we've already crossed that goal, and it's just 2024. Woo! So that was pretty cool, and we worked with community colleges because, you know, a big part of diversity is reaching to underserved communities, there's so many people who are the first in their family to ever receive a college education. So we wanted to make sure that we really provide these tools to them. So I'm really proud of that. There's also scholarship programs. We have listed here by the Last Mile Education Fund. In fact, we just posted online something about them. We do a lot with Girl Security and scholarships with them. We have our Learn Cybersecurity Fundamentals. A lot of this is just free for anyone who wants to use it. And then there's also our AI Skills Navigator, both broadly AI, but also AI in security. So these are just some of the things we're doing, and there's plenty more, but I'm excited about what we're going to do even more. And by the way, if you haven't heard about our bug bounty program, while it's not directly related, that's cool.
So
It would
cool.
be so cool.
The bug
Right,
bounty
$4
program
million
is so cool.
towards researchers,
Does
like,
everyone
wow,
know?
that sounds amazing to me. And we're going to give them AI red teaming skilling for free. So that sounds pretty cool to me on what we're doing.
I love that. The AI Red Team and the AI Bug Bounty stuff is so cool. I don't know if you didn't hear, we announced today a significant investment in the AI Bug Bounty program at Microsoft. You can just go search up Microsoft's AI Bug Bounty program and you'll see the
Yeah,
rules.
it's called Zero Day
Day
Quest.
Quest.
So if you just search for it, you should be able
$4
to know.
million additional dollars in addition to dollars we already pay out
16
on
million.
bounties. An
We pay
additional
16 million.
$4 million. And we're going to have a competition, and it's going to be really cool. And my peer Tom Gallagher, who's running it, is like super
totally.
excited.
Totally. Go for it. We want you all to find new bugs.
Anybody in here has done a bug bounty program before? One person, okay. Well, let me tell you, if you've never done bug bounty before, AI bug bounty is the easiest way to start. It has never been more accessible. You can make some cash, but you do have to pay taxes on that cash. Okay. So let's go ahead and wrap up a little bit. I want to talk to you, Vasu and Anne, last. Anne, how do we build the communities? We talked about having the support, having the birds of a feather, having those people. What advice would you give to someone who says, you know, I'm feeling kind of isolated and alone. I want the community. I want to build the community. What can they do?
It can be hard to find your people, right? It can be. It can be really hard to find your people. Some people find their people on social media, and maybe you're anonymous even, and you feel more comfortable. You can find your circle there. Maybe it's the folks. Maybe you are on the AI Red Team. By the way, Ram Shankar is one of my favorite people. He's one of the leaders on the AI Red Team. But maybe you find your community there because you're all affiliated by your work, and your work is your mission. Maybe you need work to be more of a social aspect, and your work environment, there's a soccer team or there's something else, right? I would just say you need to be open to the new experiences. You know, I came to Microsoft 9 years ago, and I actually didn't know people at Microsoft. I'd been in the industry forever. I didn't really know Microsoft very well. So I had to find my community, and how I found my community was find people that had common interests, right? Not just cybersecurity. Cybersecurity tends to be very mission-driven work, so we can be a little insular. Those of you who aren't in the industry may not realize how insular cybersecurity can be. We can be a little insular. We're not always super welcoming to outsiders. It's a fault of the industry and something we have to get better at if we want more people in the industry. But finding your community in the way you feel comfortable. Maybe you're a gamer. Maybe you get that affiliation through online gaming, and then you meet people that way. Maybe you're somebody that's very social, right? That is not me. So I'm not going to give you super good advice on that, other than maybe you're super social and you like to go out all the time, and you're going to find your community there. The important thing is finding people that share your values, finding people that share common interests with you, and then finding people that are supportive. I happen to have a very supportive community inside of work, both Microsoft and other people in cyber. I also happen to have a very supportive friend community. There's a member of that community even in the audience today, right, outside of work. And I found those communities because I put myself out there. And I'm going to say something. For somebody who is as much of an introvert as I am, and I really am, I walk off the stage and curl up in a ball. Somebody who's as much of an introvert as I am, it's hard to put yourself out there. It is really hard to put yourself out there. But if you don't ever open yourself up to those experiences, you're not going to find your community. So you have to take a little bit of risk, but do it in a way that's safe for you, a way that feels comfortable for you. And the way I did it was just being myself and finding people that had common interests. I didn't try to be something else or something different of who I was. And then you have to nurture that community. And I don't want to take any more time, but then you have to nurture the community. But I'll want to give Buzz some time.
Beautifully said, Anne. You know, we often say birds of a feather flock together. I think it's time for... Sorry, Anne. Like, truly sorry. There's a bird flying on our head. But I'm going to say it's time for birds of a different feather to flock together. It truly is. And I'm looking at this room. This is a community. This is actually what diversity looks like. I mean, look around. This is diversity at its best. This is community at its best. And I have a book recommendation, nothing to do with cybersecurity. It's called Blue Zones. If you haven't read that, it's a great book. And one of the secrets to living a long, happy, and healthy life is finding a community. Find a friend. And often at work, we have all these things. You know, we're like, work needs to be this way, talking about our biases. Home needs to be this way. But why can't work be all the fun that we want in our life? And why can't that be your community? Anne talked about opening yourself. I love Brené Brown, another great book. So I would leave you with, like, to find your community, first start by being vulnerable yourselves. It starts with vulnerability. It starts with bravery and courage, too. You've got to take that first step. Don't wait for someone to come and make you a community. You reach out. You be their community. It starts with being bold. No risk, no reward. And yes, forming a community is a big risk because sometimes we feel, you know, I may not belong or I may be hurt or someone might say no. And this is not just a community. A community is needed for us to do great AI and to do great cybersecurity. By the way, diversity is good for business. In case you're wondering, it's not just an emotive thing that we're doing here. It's good for business. Because if you find that diverse team, they are going to kick. Can I say us?
Yes,
in this
ma'am.
thing? Okay, they're going to kick us. And you want that. And that is going to be a community. And it's going to be pretty cool. So as Brené Brown says, or if you have not read Theodore Roosevelt's poetry, Man in the Arena, is beautiful. Like, we all have to dare greatly. We have to dare greatly to have diversity in all aspects of our life, because through that we form community. So I wish you all an abundant community. Let's get more cyber warriors into cybersecurity because we want that. And I wish you joy and abundance.
Perfect. I think I just want to share something with all of you that I feel like is very much what Vasu and Anne were saying. And this is something I repeat to myself all the time. Do it scared. Oh, I don't want to. Totally. Just do it scared, though. You can remain scared and still take action that you want to take. So I'm constantly telling myself, oh, I'm scared, I don't want to. Just do it. Just do it scared. Do it while you're scared. It's fine.
I'm going to use that. Do it scared.
So I encourage all of you to use that, and also to use badass cyber warriors that Vasu Jakal suggested we use. Yeah, absolutely, we're quoting. We,
It's going on LinkedIn.
Can I say something real quickly? I'm here because they took a chance on me. You're here today because someone took a chance on you. So consider paying it forward.
What a beautiful way to say that.
with that, we will wrap up now. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sharon.
No clapping. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course. So I would like to hear it for Vasu Jakal, Amanda Minich, Amelia Panicam, and Ann Johnson, our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Fantastic.
Oh my God, I couldn't.
We got Vasu to say. Oh.